Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Xena, Warrior Princess, Season 1, Episode 3, Dreamworker. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So, in this episode, Gabrielle is pushing Xena to try to teach her self-defense so that she can fight alongside Xena and to defend herself against, any highwaymen, enemies they face, etc., etc. And Xena warns her that, from the moment you pick up a sword or a weapon, you become a target because you are then seen as a threat. And also, killing is not something that she wants Gabrielle to experience. A concept like blood innocence comes up throughout this episode where, Gabrielle's still relatively innocent. She's never killed anybody, but from the moment she kills someone, she'll be forever changed. And this, of course, comes true because when they are attacked by highwaymen, bandits, Gabrielle picks up Xena's sword and immediately she starts to get attacked by two of the bandits. Xena, of course, saves her, but she realizes Xena was right. However, this entire interaction is witnessed by Magnus, who is currently the head priest of the Morpheus religion. Like, they worship the god Morpheus, and because she had the opportunity to spill blood and didn't, she is then chosen to be the sacrificial bride to Morpheus, and therefore when Xena goes into town, she is kidnapped, and not Xena's, Gabrielle is kidnapped, and put through a series of challenges where they're trying to force her to kill and lose her blood innocence. So the first challenge, she's put in a room and she's facing two opponents. She ends up tricking them into killing each other, which preserves her blood innocence. The second challenge, there's three opponents and they're attacking her in a room with a fire pit and various steams, kind of what looks like a cave system with, obviously heat underneath. She ends up tricking them into deciding who's the strongest. So two of them fight to be the strongest, ends up killing one. Then with the other two, once there were two left, she tries the same trick, but one of them is smart enough to realize what she was going to do. And so he basically is like, go ahead, you kill her. But then he stabs the other in the back, killing them. And then he decides to attack Gabrielle. However, he throws a dagger into the wall himself, and the steam behind the wall or the stone ends up building up to the point where, as he's about to throw Gabrielle into the fire pit, his own dagger ends up being shot from the wall thanks to the steam pressure, which ends up killing him. So again, she avoids killing. Third time, they basically leave her no choice. She's put in a cage. One of the walls of the cage has spikes and starts moving forward. On the other side of the cage, like the hallway of the cage, is someone with a sword, and it basically forces her to pick up the sword, and then she's going to face this person one-on-one, so that's basically going to force her to lose her blood innocence. However, while all this is going on, Xena is making her way through a dream passage, and this is a skill by a former mystic. So before Magnus took over, the Morpheus religion was not as evil as it had become, and when he saw how evil it had become, he decided to leave the mystics. But even as a former mystic, because of the torment the villagers had gone through and the lost daughters from them being kidnapped to take part in the ritual like Gabrielle is currently, he's discriminated against, but Xena does him a kindness, buying him a halter for his horse. So he offers to send her through a dream passage, and it's basically her soul is sent into a dream passage. As she makes her way through the passage, she faces the demons of her past and basically has to overcome them. Once she overcomes them, she's then able to break out of the dream passage, and her body will reunite with her soul on the other side, which basically allows her to skip having to fight her way into the fortress temple, but basically she just teleports there, and she manages to make it just in time before Gabrielle has to face this last person, and she of course instead of Gabrielle, so Gabrielle's blood innocence is left intact, and she manages to basically defeat everybody in the temple. This then allows, at the end of the episode, for Elkin, who was the um, former high priest, to basically get his old job back. Magnus is sent into a dream passage, and that is considered his judgment. He'll either overcome his demons or die trying. And, oh yeah, with the dream passage, obviously, if you don't make it in time or aren't able to defeat your demons, then your body will die because your soul is outside of it. And that almost happens to Xena, but again, she makes it just in time. Um, anyway, she saves Gabrielle. The valley is freed from the oppression of the Morpheus Temple, and Elkin gets his job back and promises to celebrate Morpheus and the God of Dreams with joy rather than fear. So, sweet dreams instead of nightmares, essentially. And that is what happened in this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, it is time to rank the episode, first on our mostly objective ranking, followed by the personal ranking list. And we start with our single episode supporting characters. So we had Elkton, who was the former priest who becomes the head priest again at the end of the episode, or as they call them, mystics. And then Manus was not Magnus, sorry, Manus was the head priest who kidnaps Gabrielle, and it was the current leader leading with fear instead of joy. Worth 1 point each. Then we had the multi-season main character development. Gabrielle was kidnapped as a bride and sacrifice for Morpheus. However, she can't become the sacrificial bride until her blood innocence is spilled, and she manages to keep that intact. Then we have the multi-season main character growth. Xena, through going through the dream passage, manages to face her past and her unresolved issues, the source and key of her nightmares, her past self even, and has to come to accept the evil side of herself as part of herself. And that obviously leads to character growth as she comes to accept that and overcomes it. And then we have the world building, which is the introduction of Morpheus, God of Dreams, and the Dream Passage, which again allows the soul to travel ahead and the body to follow after, once the other side is reached, but failure results in death of the body. And that brings us all the way up in points, but we did have some negatives in this episode. Obviously, Xena refuses to help Gabrielle learn self-defense, tells her to either run or talk her way out of it, which does end up helping her in the tasks. However, given that Xena is a warrior princess, given that they do run into bandits, given that Xena is going around, heroing, I'm not saying teach her deadly self-defense. As we know in the future, having foresight due to it being a rewatch, she eventually takes up the staff, which allows her to fight and defend herself without killing people. And I feel like something like that at this point would be helpful to Gabrielle. I think it is negative to basically leave Gabrielle defenseless when she is following Xena into all of these dangerous situations. So I do think that that is negative. I understand why Xena doesn't want her to kill or become like her, but I think some basic self-defense that will leave the opponent alive, but give Gabrielle, some way to get out of a sticky situation, since they are going to find themselves in many sticky situations, would not be unheard of or a negative thing. So I did take 2 points for that. Obviously, they were attacked by bandits. Banditry is bad, so -2 points for that. And then the fact that Elkton was discriminated against for being a former mystic, to the point where they wouldn't even sell him a horse halter even though he was blind and couldn't lead his horse without one, and wouldn't do business with him. I felt that that was rather distasteful, especially since he was the one who saw the evil that the cult was becoming and left it, and then for them to just punish him because when it was better, he was part of it. It's like, he's the good guy. He's the one who figured out that it was bad. But by the end of the episode, he does become the high priest again, and this grants him his sight back, so he actually ends up better off for it. And the villagers do come to accept him because he does lead with, again, joy, not fear, with regards to Morpheus's religion, but at the same time, the earlier discrimination I thought wasn't necessary, and so I did take 2 points for that as well. And that ultimately left us with an 8 out of 10. And that brings our mostly objective ranking to in first, Sins of the Past, this episode Dreamworker in second, and Chariots of War in third. And once again, my personal list does align the same way, Sins of the Past first, Dreamworker second, and Chariots of War third. I did like this episode. I did give it an 8 out of 10. I chose an 8 out of 10 because I really liked the concept of the episode. I liked the dream passage idea and how it did teleport her body into the castle or the fortress just in time to save Gabrielle. I thought the trials were interesting and that Gabrielle showed her cleverness by being able to get out of them. There were wardrobe changes and Gabrielle's dress was really pretty. Xena had a really pretty over like like a lacy cloak type thing. The dress underneath it was so-so, but like the shawl or cloak or robe that she had over it that was like lacy was very nice. Um, and I did find, again, that character growth was very good. The only thing is, it was an episode that was held back by the special effects of the time. I mean, ultimately, the Dream Passage was basically just like a stone hallway or cave with like what looked like fishing nets strung up in various places and then some like blue lighting. It didn't look mystical to me. It didn't look magical. And I feel like something like a dream passage in my mind should be, full of mist and be super magical. And, it should have been more visually stunning, is all I'm saying. And it didn't really have that. And I know that that's held back by the effects of the time, probably the fact that it was made for TV and it was on a TV episode's budget. So I understand why it wasn't as mystical and magical, but I wish it would have been. There were parts of the episode where, it did feel a little bit drawn out, and slow, like especially when she was facing, you know, her past, like she was getting crowded by people and it took her a while to get past each of them, which makes sense. I mean, she's going on more of an emotional journey than anything else. But basically, like the lack of effects, the sort of slowness of some of the scenes, I did decide ultimately to give it an 8, as I said, just because while I really liked the episode, it wasn't perfect. And I feel like it could have benefited from better effects. Even like with the effects of the time, I feel like they could have made the dream passage more mystical and magical looking, is all I'm saying. Which brings us now to the series ranking so far. Mostly objective ranking has 23 out of 240, and the personal ranking is at 22 out of 240. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Xena, Warrior Princess, Season 1, Episode 3, Dream Worker. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.